you're thinking about turbocharging a car, or if you're just curious on what's going on with turbos, you've come to the right video. Yeah, you could go through a book like this, and I did, and I wanted to carve my eyes out of my skull with a spoon. But you know what? At the end of the day, 99% of this information is useless. If you want to learn how to manufacture turbos, yeah, that would probably be the Bible. But does that matter to you? Absolutely not. What I want is a fast car, I want a turbo on it, and I want to do it as easily and cheaply as possible. I need to understand what path I need to take, and that's what this video is about. So we're going to get rid of all that crap that you don't need to know, and we're going to tell you what you do need to know. So let's get into it. To the Digital Board of Knowledge! We're going to call this the Turbo Engineering Masterclass. We're just going to go through it. What do you actually need to know when you're going to turbocharge a car? So all the old school turbo math, again, like the stuff in this book. And if you want to buy this book and read it, you know what? Why not? But do you need to? Absolutely not. The information's honestly useless. All that old school math, all that stuff you used to have to figure out, yeah, it's completely obsolete. You don't need to know that anymore. Basically, they have calculators that take all the complex math out of it, and it'll just spit you out a turbo map. So as long as you understand the basics of the turbo map, you'll be able to select the proper turbo. These tools, Matchbot, Boost Advantage, great tools. Like, you can just go on the internet and you don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to understand how airflow is measured or how pumping losses happen. You just go in there and you put in your engine information, like I did right here, and it'll spit out a whole bunch of turbos and turbo maps that could possibly work for your engine. You just go through and you look at the maps and you pick out the right one. So here's a bunch of irrelevant math, airflow ratios, turbos, boosts, dude, this stuff doesn't even matter. CFM conversion charts, there's the math for that. Density ratios, mass airflow, all that stuff, compression ratios, how to figure out that, none of it matters to you. So, what is the ABCs of turbocharging? We're going to start with the rules of thumb. One of the first things you want to know about turbos is, for whatever reason, the Europeans measure it in bars instead of PSI. I don't know why. Americans, we go boost pressure, PSI, they're going bars. So what is a bar? A bar is 14.5 PSI. Now, you would think it'd be 14.7 because that's the atmosphere, but that actually has a different number, but I don't really see it being used. It's usually just bars or PSI, but it's like AMTs or something like that. I forget the thing. It's irrelevant. They never use it. But so instead of 14.7, it's 14.5. So quick conversion real quick. 1.5 bars, that's 22 PSI in America. 2 bars, that's 29 PSI in America. And 2.5 bars, that's 36 PSI in America. All right, first rule of thumb. A 1-to-1 airflow ratio. The golden rule is 1 pound per minute of airflow equals about 10 flywheel horsepower. So how does that math work out for you? Say, for example, I want to ultimately build 600 horsepower. I need to get a turbo that can flow at least 60 pounds per minute of air to be able to get 600 horsepower. Now, it isn't exact, but that's a rule of thumb. So, all right, let's pretend I'm building an engine. Right now, it's got 450 horsepower. I want to put on a turbo and get 500 horsepower, but I ultimately want to build it up to 600 horsepower. I'm just not there yet. Well, what I'd want to do is get a turbo right around 60 pounds per minute of airflow. CFM multiple conversion. 1 PSI of boost typically increases your air intake temperature by 10 to 15 PSI. So if I'm running 30 pounds, that's 300 degrees I'm adding into my air intake temperature. Again, it's why intercoolers are so important. Yeah, you know what, on the smaller turbos you can get away without running them, but honestly on a bigger turbo you really need to run it. So here's the math in real life. This is the G35-900. This particular turbo flows, where is it? Oh, right here, 82 pounds per minute. So that means this turbo would be ideal for an 820 horse engine. Now they rated all the way up to 900 horsepower. That is on the ragged edge. Like, I mean, you're getting right on the efficiency edges right there, but it could get there. Again, the rule of thumb, bam. If I'm building an 820 horsepower engine, I want to be around 82 pounds per minute. So, notice how this is good for 2 liters to 5.5 liter. It doesn't say at 2 liter you can only get this much, and at a 5 liter you can only get this much. What it says, if you fall in this engine range, you should be able to achieve 900 horsepower, saying the engine can handle it, because this turbo flows enough air to be able to do that. So again, the engine side is irrelevant. Looking at the turbo itself, max flow rate 82 pounds per minute. This is good. This is ideal for an 820 horsepower engine, but they claim it can go all the way up to 900 horsepower. So, rule number 2, the magic number 14.7 psi, that is atmospheric pressure. That is what you are under right now. That is what is pushing down on you. So, at sea level, with an efficient turbo, if you doubled that, so you're running 14.7 pounds of boost, you will essentially double your naturally aspirated horsepower. So if I started off at 300 horsepower, and I put 14.7 pounds of boost on there, if everything's running efficiently, I should be up around 600 horsepower. If I started at a 500 horsepower naturally aspirated engine, like, I don't know, an LS7, and I plumb 14.7 psi boost on there, I should be at 1,000 horsepower. Simple. Total horsepower, naturally aspirated, 14.7, doubling it. Again, the reality check, this is with efficiency working good. If your turbo is outside of your turbo map, no, you're not going to get that. Your efficiency is going to take a shit. All right, so we're going to do some real world examples here. That little video I ran earlier, that is of 6.2 liter, basically an LS3 single turbo. I put in there that I'm looking for a target number of 700 horsepower, and we're going to be looking at the goals and seeing what exactly we need. So obviously the rule of thumb says I should be looking for a turbo around 70 pounds per minute of airflow. So let's start looking at some of the turbo maps, and we're going to be taking a look at that, and we're also going to talk about turbo mapping or compressor mapping. The first problem you run into, that is surge. This is a big one. You need to know what your surge line is. This is where it's going to stall out. So this basically means that you are running a turbo that is too big. And for whatever RPM, whatever puts you into surge, the boost pressure builds up, it's going forward toward the engine can't swallow it, so it hits the wall, and then it starts coming backwards. That's where you get the sound from. Now, yes, that sounds awesome. That sounds really cool, but you know what that is? That is your turbo getting ate alive. It's smashing against the wheel, it's vibrating back, it's just smashing the shit out of your turbos. Now the newer advanced turbos, I shouldn't say newer advanced because this book is old, but that's what this is for right here, to help prevent on the surge. It just gives a little bit of bypass. Yeah, that turbo still will surge, but you can bring that surge line down a little bit. So what is that going to look like? This right here, this particular turbo, this is, where is it? I think it was 150 complete flow. So this is 140 to 150 pounds per minute of airflow. So this is essentially a 1500 horsepower turbo. Because we are only looking for 700 horsepower, look what happens at the low RPMs. This is your surge line right here. You do not, in any circumstance, want to be on this side of this line, because that means your turbo is too big. Well, at low RPMs, all right, so let me explain what's going on here. So this is your surge line. This is your choke line. We'll talk about that next. This is the turbo's RPMs. All right, so this pounds per minute of airflow. Turbo pressure ratio. Again, these take a whole bunch of mathematical arithmetics to figure out. We're not going to worry about that. What we're just looking at is the image. This is your island. This is where you want to be. This is where your plot lines want to be. This is where you're going to get the most efficiency. All right, so this one, the turbo is clearly too big. This turbo is rated for 1500 horsepower. Now, this could work, say, run a wastegate. I'll talk about that later. But right now, if I just throw that turbo on there, this is a bad matchup because this turbo is too big, and it's going to get that stalling right there at low engine RPM speeds. So if I were to mash the throttle out of the gate, it's going to be choo, 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 and it's going to surge a bunch, and it's going to feel like crap, and I'm going to build really shit power. This turbo is way oversized for this particular build. All right, so now we're going to talk about choke. This is what happens when the turbo is too small. We've hit the maximum efficiency of the turbo. Essentially, the choke line happens when the air coming in hits Mach 1, the speed of sound. At that point, You cannot get any more flow through there. That is maxed out. What you're going to start doing is just raising the temperature. Now your turbo is turning it into a hairdryer or a flamethrower. It's just going to start dumping massive amounts of heat in there, and that's when you get something called ghost boost. Because as you warm air, it starts expanding. So as you're warming up the air in your intake, you're going to see it's going to look like you're getting more boost, but you're not. Yeah, the volume's increasing, which is bad. You want the density to increase. That's why you have intercoolers to cool that stuff off so there's more molecules in a smaller place. So what does the choke line look like? In this particular case, this turbo is rated between 500 and 1,000 horsepower. The airflow, where is it? I should have highlighted this stuff. Airflow ratio is 113 pounds per minute. So this theoretically should work. So this is why these charts matter, because in theory, yeah, you know what, this fills plenty enough air to be able to do this. But when you start looking at everything coming in, there's different things like trim and stuff like that. This one is clearly not an ideal for this build because as you notice, yeah, the plot line right here, this ain't bad. This is doable. Yeah, it's on the edge, but it's still inside. Now we've hit the choke line right there. This means the air coming in the turbo has hit the speed of sound. I am just going to generate a whole bunch of heat and I'm going to start losing horsepower. Probably going to burn my engine down. Because remember, as that heat goes into the engine hotter and hotter and hotter, well, now you're going to have detonation problems, so the piston's coming up. Also, well, now the gas is burning, and the gas is trying to push down, and the piston's still trying to push up. You bend rods, you blow out rings, you can heat up your rings and pop off the top of a piston. You have all types of bad shit happening when you start getting into this section right here. This is not ideal. This is not where you want to be. So, this is your turbo map. This is an ideal plot line. You're starting inside, you're near the island right there, and you stay inside the island while the turbo's running. This right here, this is your island. This is where you want to be. You do not want to be here. You do not want to be here. You do not want to be here. You especially don't want to be outside this map in any place. All right, so this particular turbo, this is not ideal for the setup because it's not completely on the island. Again, you'd want a plot line from like here to here, but you are in there. This turbo would actually work because you're not below this at low RPMs. And as the RPMs climb up, you're still inside, what is this percent? Looks like in the 70% window, but again, you'd want to be more inside here. This isn't ideal, but this could actually work. Moving right along. All right, so wastegate. So obviously, if you want to run a super huge turbo, like say you're going to be like between 1,000 and 2,000 horsepower, you know what? You're going to have issues at low RPMs. That's just the way it is. One of the ways to fix this is a wastegate. So what this wastegate does is it opens at low RPM, so you don't run into that one map where you're running into the surge line at your low RPMs, and then as you start building RPMs and the engine can actually consume the air coming into it, well, now the wastegate starts closing down, so now you can get up to 2,000 horsepower. Now you may be thinking, hey, well, what about twin turbos? Well, just twin turbos, like say one on the right bank and one on the left bank, that absolutely does not fix the problem. The problem with twin turbos is, and now I misunderstood this back in the day, and I thought twin turbos did fix it. We'll talk about how to fix it, but just twin turbos by itself does not. So a single turbo, you're looking at making 1,000 horsepower off the total exhaust pressure of the engine, right? Now, with the two smaller turbos, you're still looking at each one has to make 500 horsepower apiece, but you're only using half of the engine. So you're still going to have a bunch of lag, you're going to run into choke, maybe surge. It's just not going to be ideal. You're going to basically have the exact same result as one big turbo. So this does not fix the problem. You have to run a wastegate when you get to that bigger numbers if you can't find a turbo that lines up. Now there's a lot of turbos out there. Maybe you can find one that lines up, but chances are you're going to want to just use the wastegate so the turbo doesn't wake up until you're into the high RPMs, or maybe it only wakes up a little bit because another problem with those big horsepower, let's pretend your engine can swallow that much air. Man, if I hit 30 pounds right out of the line, I'm just going to nuke my tires. I'm not going to go anywhere. And if the power's not getting to the road, it's kind of useless. So you can use a wastegate to, okay, so now in first gear, I only want to be at 5 pounds. Then second gear, you know what, we'll go into 10. And then by third gear, now we can drop the whole 30 pounds on it. So that's where wastegate really starts to come into play with these bigger turbos. Now, dual turbos, you have sequential and compound setups. Now this does make a difference. This is how you can handle it. One of the ways you can do it is you have the smaller turbo that's going to handle your in-town driving, your stuff like that. Well, as spooling builds really quickly, it's going to be able to handle that fine. Well, as you get into the higher RPMs, it'll hand it off. So now the smaller turbo will get bypassed and the bigger turbo will come online, and that's where you're going to get into your high horsepower, like 1,000 horsepower, stuff like that. It's an easy way to do it. They have dual scroll turbos too, so 2 different scrolls that the exhaust can push on. They have multiple velocity turbos. Those are all great. That's another way to solve the problem. We'll do separate videos on all that stuff because we're still just concentrating on the map itself. So, what are we looking at here? We are looking at being on the efficiency island. Go onto those computers, put in realistic numbers, like what horsepower am I realistic hitting? What is my displacement? As long as I'm honest about those numbers, it'll spit out all the maps with my plot lines already on it. I just scroll through. Nope, 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 nope. Oh, here we go. Here's one that'll work just fine. And then I can look at that. I can compare it, double check, like, all right, so how much airflow does it have? Is that close to the horsepower number I'm going to have? Am I going to want max horsepower? Like, let's pretend, so I'm building in the LS3, right? I'm building it right now for 700 horsepower, but I know in the future I'm going to go with a much larger horsepower, like 800 or something like that. I might try to look for a turbo where I'm still in the efficiency island right there, but it has a higher flow rate so I can expand and build more horsepower later, if that all makes sense to you. Anyways, appreciate you guys watching the video. If you'd like to subscribe, I'd love that. If you'd like to help support the channel, one of the best ways to do this is click on the Amazon affiliate link. Even if you don't buy what that link is for, just clicking on it and doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway, I'll kick back for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.